It's an absolute delight to welcome all of you to our very interesting session from survival to disruption, a country overview during global VUCA. And we are going to have various speakers joining us, sharing their views, sharing their experiences, what they, along with their organizations, have been doing in the current situation. And first, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to Mr. S. Raman, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of National E-Governance Services Limited.
It's a pleasure for me to be here amongst you. My thanks to the Times Group to have invited me for this very special program, and it's my privilege to be speaking to an august audience. We really all don't need to go back to how bad the pandemic was. It was probably the black swan event of our lives. But amazingly, as they say, every cloud has a silver lining. And we at NESL, India's information utility, really grabbed the opportunity to take the country forward. And I say it in full humility that we have made our attempts to make the country take that digital leap of faith. And what exactly did we do? You're all aware that contracts are continuously signed and executed in this country. The information utility operates under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, and therefore the mandate is for the information utility to hold documents and data of financial contracts. The financial contracts are mandatorily filed in the information utility by the lenders. There is another very large group of contracts that are signed in this country, which are to do with buying and selling of goods and services. So all in all, the information utility really is there for the economic agents of our country, which means service providers and their buyers. And most of the buyers would be people like you and me. What did the information utility do to overcome the problems that were accentuated by the pandemic? Let us all be aware that the Indian ecosystem is one that has dabbled with digital ventures, and I think all in all, if we were to pat ourselves on the back, it would not be an unfair thing to do. The growth of, let me go back to the railway ticketing system and let me fast forward to the UPI and the payment system. These are the transformational events that has taken this country many steps forward. Probably even some of the developed countries don't have the kind of payment systems that we have today. The execution of a contract is mired in paper and in standing in lines waiting for stamping to be done and waiting for your turn in a bank where the bank officers might just be inundated with so many documents that need to be executed. We've all probably taken off a day to go and execute a document in a bank. The information utility therefore put together the end-to-end digital contracting system. You can call it smart contracts, you can call it remote-based, non-face-to-face contracts. At the end of the day, it's all about ease of doing business. And that, if you ask me, is the central thrust of what NESL performed as an information utility. So we set up what is really a digital end-to-end contracting system, which starts with, for example, a lender, a bank, pushing through the information that ordinarily would have been sent to a borrower on a physical piece of paper. There would have been reams and reams of papers on which the borrower would have signed on every single page, thereby committing to the loan that the borrower is taking. The digital document execution platform of NESL therefore allows the bank to complete the loan sanction, create the documents in digital form on the bank's system, upload the documents along with the data that is contained in those documents as a metadata. This entire bit of information payload is is communicated to NESL through an API that has been created by NESL and has been distributed and shared with the entire set of lenders in the country. This information contains all the relevant details of the borrower. The borrower receives an email or an SMS, clicks on the link, comes to the NESL platform, views the document, accepts the document, and then two things happen on the NESL platform, which is courtesy the service providers in this country. The state governments have now made e-stamping fully digital. This is still work in progress, but I can assure you that every state government has understood the urgency of bringing in a digital e-stamping system. So there is no more paper for a stamp certificate. And that in itself, if you ask me, is a quiet revolution in the government space. So a request goes out from NESL, the state government receives the money online from the NESL wallet, which is there with the state government. In return, the state sends the stamp certificate. This is embedded by NESL on the platform on top of the document, and therefore there is a complete document of a stamp certificate and the loan document underlying it. This is the full set of documents that typically are signed by a borrower in the physical system in a single stroke without more than a single signature. There are no more 50 signatures involved. The borrower is taken to the ESP, that is the e-sign service providers platform. In our case, it is CDAC, and the signature happens in a single stroke. The signature again could be the Aadhaar OTP based signature or the biometric signature, or even for companies, they can affix the DSC, which is the digital signature certificate which company officials hold. And once the signature is completed of the borrower, there is a sequence that the bank may have suggested. There may be three borrowers on the side, three signatories on the side of the borrower, a borrower, guarantor, co-obligant. So each person receives this link from the NESL, the signature is completed, and then finally the bank officials come to the platform and they can also affix the signature. And the entire process, what I have explained from start to finish, is all of 5 minutes. So you can imagine how we are really looking at a transformation, let me say a digital revolution within the last mile of documentation in the credit industry. So we are saying that the customer no longer needs to go to the bank. The customer stays at home or sits in his office. The bank officials are again more safe because they have, they don't have a long line of customers in front of them. We're talking about a pandemic situation where social distancing and keeping yourself safe is of importance. But nevertheless, even if we were to look at, 1 year down the road when we might return to a complete normalcy, the sheer ease of doing business, the sheer ease of living for you and me as customers is really what I think has come to stay. So think of it, 5 minutes, you've done your complete documentation, you've not taken leave from office, and it's done. And what has happened in the back scenes, let me try and explain to you that the Government of India, the Department of Revenue, the Department of Financial Services have understood that this is the way forward. There has been a tremendous amount of work that has happened behind the scenes for the central government and the state governments to be made aware of the fact that yes, this is a completely sanguine way of doing the e-stamping, that is in a completely digital mode. And this transformation really is something, when you add it with the concept of e-sign, which is another great product of the Aadhaar ecosystem, we're really talking about completion of routine tasks which otherwise would have taken so long, completing it in such a short span of time. So this is really what has happened. We have several state governments which have already given permission for this. We have about 6 of the largest banks in the country which are already pushing through their documents in this platform. And believe me, in the next 3 months, we're probably going to have the kind of pan-India sort of movement towards digital document execution. This has been driven very, very closely by the Department of Financial Services. And I think we have, as a company, also learned from the initial sort of experiences with our customers that how to make the entire platform safe. So, the minute we talk digital, the next word is data security. And I think the business case is something that all of you would probably now appreciate as I've explained it to you. But the data security part is something that is enough to give a CIO and a CTO sleepless nights. So we have the best of class security. We are guided by an extremely proficient, experienced technology committee. And we are really taking no chances when it comes to data in motion, data in rest. There is an encryption at every single stage of this journey. In fact, we've gone to great lengths to ensure that the data at rest, because once a document comes in, it's a very, very important piece of documentation for both the lender and the borrower. And therefore, keeping the data safe is probably the largest responsibility that we have today. And how does it fit into the entire sort of economic framework of lending and borrowing? So you can look at the fact that there are several hundred retail loans given by large banks on a daily basis, and at some point of time that the bank A might want to bundle a set of retail loans, give it a different nature, which is bundling it into a different type of asset. These are standard things which have happened in the past, mortgage backed assets, creating the securitization products as it's known, and they might want to sell it to another bank. And then you're really looking at a situation where all the information in the underlying, say, 1,000 loans which make up this new product, this new asset, these 1,000 loans can be looked at by prospective bidders. There is full information available. There is absolutely no paper. Information moves seamlessly between bank A and the bidders 1, 2, 3. And then you're talking about the transfer of asset from bank A to the buying bank. And all we're saying is that in the information utility, the name of bank A is then replaced and the name of bank B comes in. So we're talking about tremendous use cases that can come about with the adoption of digital documents. The concept of e-bank guarantee, which again is something which is so important for the country to be able to digitize bank guarantees, given the sort of scams that happened concerning how bank guarantees and letters of credit and standby letters of credit have been misused in the past. We're talking about the centralized digital repository for bank guarantees, because bank guarantees, again, nothing but a document that is created by the bank on behalf of its customer for the benefit of a beneficiary. And this tripartite agreement is simply something that can again go through the digital document execution process, and it is presented to both the customer and the beneficiary on a digital repository, which is the information utility. So the whole idea is that there is a pandemic. Yes, there was obviously a lot of work that was done before the pandemic. There was a lot of good ideas that were in germination. There was, a lot of hard work done. Basically POCs were done at that point of time. But what the pandemic really sort of gave us that additional push and momentum was to make this thing happen much faster, to take digitization ahead at a much quicker pace. And that's really what I would say has been the combined success. The IBBI, the DFS, the Department of Revenue, and the state governments have come together to be able to bring ease of doing business to the doorstep of every economic agent in the country. And therefore, as we move ahead, we're really looking at how this can transform into the concept of the distributed ledger, because when we talk about smart contracts, when we talk about contracts that have a set of stakeholders today, and there might be a different set of stakeholders tomorrow, this kind of a the distributed ledger concept can, come straight into this. And there is really a sea change, because if you look at it, the kind of money and time that is spent by large banks uh, putting together, documents in physical form, storing it, losing it, there's a flood, there is, sort of some other problem. And we're now looking at moving this entirely into a digital repository. The ease of access, the ease of, bundling loans together, the ease of transferring loans from party A to party B, all this becomes so much easier. So it's really one of those things where if you, the goal is clear. It's just that an event happens, completely random event happens, and it galvanizes the policymakers and the, the operators in the system to move faster in order to deliver something to the public. So this is just a small example. I'm sure there are many more such examples of great work being done in our country, and the ability to move ahead with the kind of digital ecosystem that has got unleashed. I think the legal framework in this country in the digital area is completely ready. So we have an Information Technology Act which is already there to take care of the requirements in the digital space. We have the Indian Evidence Act, which has been amended appropriately in order to give a full credibility to evidence that is held in digital form. In fact, the information utility, which is designed under the IBC, is nothing but a digital evidence repository. And that itself is, if you ask me, a tremendous piece of legislation going forward into the future, where the future is really all about using the digital platforms and digital processes to make your and my life easier. So I think, I'm again very happy to be here and to be able to speak to you about a small but very transformative action that we did manage to take at NESL, the information utility. And I'm sure we'll be hearing about how this adoption leads to many more such related digital enhancements in the future. So thank you very much, and I hand you over to Isha.
And now let me welcome Mr. Golak Kumar Simli, Chief Technology Officer, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, sharing his views.
Thank you, Isa, for providing me opportunity to speak on the ET event. Today, we'll speak about how digital technology is playing a big role, in terms of changing the work culture, in terms of aligning our workforce, in terms of creating new business opportunity, in terms of diversifying what we have today and looking for a new business areas of concerns. And especially if I go back little and see the year 2020 when this pandemic hit us, ministry like us, program like Passport Seva and any big program per se in government of India, we had to kind of a completely realign our digital strategy. And when I say completely realigning our digital strategy, there are three, four things comes to my mind. The first and foremost thing is the workload. No, I always say that we must know our workload. What is the workload I am dealing with? Is it a critical workload? Is it a fiduciary workload? And there are workload WFH kind of a environment, and there I had to be very sure saying that is that I'm accessing my critical and sovereign data from a WFH kind of environment. Is that I'm anyway kind of a compromising in terms of security, in terms of privacy, in terms of accessing my corporate network and corporate applications over a WFH environment. And that's why, as I said, defining your workload is very important. And while you define your workload, you have to also see that what kind of data I am dealing. And I per se, what we have experienced or what we have come across during these kind of a big programs is saying that we must classify our data in terms of what is my confidential data, what is my fiduciary data, what is my public data, what is my configurable data. And once you do that, then the second part is now you have to see what kind of application you are dealing with. And again, as I said, when suddenly we were kind of going into a remote environment, two things were very important. One is what kind of application, enterprise application you are dealing with. Is that application which otherwise you are accessing on kind of a on-premises intranet kind of a environment. Now suddenly when you are going kind of a VPN kind of a access through a remote device, as I said, one is application, whether it is gelling in with those principles. Is it the application which you have written or architect or design? Is it kind of having that kind of agility to access from the remote? And at the same time, when you are accessing from such kind of a remote devices, is that the endpoint is secure? Is that the channel through which you are accessing is secure? And one point let me must mention here. See, whether knowingly or unknowingly, when you are allowing any of such of your applications or corporate network accessing through a WFH kind of a environment, you are already into a kind of an intermediary role in terms of coming into the IT Act. And if I quote a specific section of the IT Act under section 43A of the IT Act 2000, you are already into the role of intermediaries. And if that is the case, you have to doubly sure that the compliances, the regulations, the law of the land, what you have today, you are must kind of adhering, you are must complying with those land of laws. So that was the second very important, which every one of us had to deal with when we are shifting from a kind of a on-premises. The third area, which is again very important to understand, is the is the that I always say that your web. Now, when I say web, means your content and contest. What kind of content and what kind of contest you are dealing with? When you are suddenly into this kind of a strategic kind of a realignment, strategic rethinking, complete cultural shift within your organization. So, are you ready with the content and contest you are dealing with, especially government, when we are dealing with public at large, masses at large? Now, going forward, there are no 3 4 more areas when somebody has to ramp up their digital journey, and somebody has to kind of now more or less, I'll say every organization, whether it is a public sector, whether it is a private organization, any local bodies, more or less now their digital realignment, digital strategy, digital planning has completely changed. And here it plays two very important aspects which one has to take care is, one is the kind of business model you are looking, right? And that business model has to be very innovative. That model has to be very sustainable. For an example, in Passport Seva program, we have innovated a business model that calls PPP business model, public-private partnership business model. And that beauty of that business model was, I don't have to worry about the finance, because government had to really kind of invest a very minimum kind of in terms of finance. The second very big advantage was, in terms of people, process, and technology, because having a industry partner in place, didn't have to worry about that, especially when I was looking for a workforce of around, let's say, 4,000 to 5,000 people more. Just imagine, creating that workforce within the government ecosystem, how difficult it is. That was the second big advantage of this kind of a innovative business model. The third was, we always say that the technology, and technology become obsolete after naturally, maybe at the max 5 years or 6 years. Even if I talk about the data center resources, and there it comes, very handy for all of us, saying that the technology refreshment, the technology upgradation, all this has been very smoothly taken care by the industry partner with whom you are engaged with. And you, as a government agency or as a government department or ministry, you are really focusing on your policies, your processes, your rules, your regulations, your land of the law. And that's how you are kind of making an environment for the industry also to work together and go forward. Then comes one more area I would also like to touch upon, saying that when we are dealing with this kind of a digital journey, or ramping up from our silo days to, let's say, automation days to disruption days, uh, uh, the one point I really want to kind of focus and kind of strengthen here, saying that the emerging era, the emerging technologies, that are playing a very big role, while we are shaping up our digital journey, while we are realigning our digital journey. And if I can quote here, saying that, the report and the data says that almost 64% of CEOs now, they feel that and they believe that their businesses will get disrupted by this emerging technology, whether it is AI, whether it is cloud, whether it is big data, whether it is analytics part of it. And even if I look towards the fourth industrial revolution, which we are already into, again I find that, the role of emerging technology is going to play a very big role. And if that is the case, here one has to again kind of think themselves, they have to strategize themselves in terms of how do you leverage the emerging technology. And let me also give here one of the example from my own ministry or Passport Seva program. When we were trying to leverage this kind of a emerging technology like cloud or big data, I had to take a no kind of a hybrid approach where I had to ensure that my application and database layer remains intact within the on-premises data center. However, I can cache some of let's say static content, HTML pages into a cloud, but again without violating any norms set up by METI government of India, and that's how probably I could access to all my embassies and consulate across the world, giving the same experience for my citizens and the Indian diaspora living outside the country. So what I feel is the going forward, then the way forward is especially for the government department, ministries, and public sector at large. The approach is the way forward will be a hybrid way. So, meaning to say that there will be something physical, something digital. There will be on premises and kind of a off premises, which kind of a cloud kind of a variance you will have, and there will also be kind of a your workforce, which will be some of the workforce will be working from remote WFH kind of an environment, and some of the workforce will continue to work on premises workload, which is critical, which is sovereign in nature. The last thing, let me before I end my points here, I would mention that while we are marching ahead towards, let's say, $1 trillion kind of a digital economy, which government is looking forward. In my view and in my experience, it says that the journey will not be government by alone or public sector by alone. It has to be a collaborative journey between the government along with the industry partners, and then there you have to innovate lot many kind of a business innovation, business opportunities, business model, and you will witness that this business model between a service seeker and service provider, between a consumer and service provider, between government and industry will evolve more and more, and that's how probably we will be able to meet the kind of a vision of digital India which government is looking for, which our honorable Prime Minister is looking for, and that's how the journey will be. So thank you. Back to Isha. Back to you.
And we'd now like to welcome Dr. N. Rajendran, Chief Executive Officer, IFCAS RBI subsidiary. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Isa. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Economic Times Digital Warrior Summit and Awards. I thank the event organizer to inviting me to speak on this occasion. First of all, I would like to thank the frontline runners of the COVID-19, the doctors, the nurses, and sanitary workers, and other frontline security agencies who put their lives in risk to save the other lives. And if we see, the entire country went on to the complete lockdown during this pandemic period. And very few institutions like hospitals and banking and some emergency services have been open, and it operated with very limited resources. The BFSI segment, one of the critical segment which played the major role during the pandemic to take care a lot of business as well as the essential services required for the country as well as the people. In that way, if you take, I'm proud that the Indian banking communities and the digital platforms and the payment systems, and most of the staffs, they work round the clock, even months together, not gone to their homes and stayed in some of the critical infrastructure locations, and they provided and ensured the services are available to the others. Though most of us, we are visiting at the home, and we could able to do the lot of services like the buying the groceries, buying the essential services like milk and other related requirements through the digital platforms. And throughout pandemic period, most of the countries face the severe problem in the economic also, though we are also got impacted, and mostly on the SMEs where they do not have the access to the digital payment platforms or digital banking systems. Those areas had a little impact on their lives also. The economic growth also has shown some the impact in the growth. Otherwise, if we see the other digital platform, when you talk about the e-commerce platforms like UPI and the NEFT, RTGS, and these platforms has made available to the people and to the business entities to they do their business as usual. And if you see the things, all of you know the things, the UPI is one of the digital platform which is globally recognized as a unique product, and exponential growth happen for the product. And the last year in 2019, and if we see the things, number of banks onboarded around 150, though the 2020 was partially locked down and fully locked down, and the banks put their efforts, and if you see the thing in the end of the December 2020, 150 becomes a 200 institutions is made part of this UPI product. That means that everybody had worked either remotely or they gone to offices, and various methods they put and created a big change in the systems and deliver the product to their customers. That way, if you start about the adoptions also, it has gone through the very high adoptions, and the monthly volume in 2019 was around 1.5 trillions, and in December 2020, then it becomes the 2.23 billion transactions. So it is about the 71% on year growth happened. At the same time, the people spend the money in the 2019, if we say take the December 2019, and it is around 2 trillion values the transactions took place, and in the December 2020, and it went up to 4 trillion approximately value the transaction taken, and that is more than 100% on year growth happens. What it shows that? It shows that the digital platforms has enabled the growth of the various sectors and the consumer spending areas, where the consumer mostly on the domestic product could able to do the transactions using this digital platform during the entire pandemic period. At the same time, a lot of innovations also happened during this pandemic period. And if we see that the adoption of UPI 2.0 and the IPO has been launched, and the other auto pay systems kind of product also has been rolled out, it is not only just one institution work. It is the combination of a lot of institution, banks, and the technology service provider. Lot of people work together to create and achieve these values. So other areas where the silently work has happened, and in the road infrastructures, the lot of infrastructures, the repairs and other things, they took place, and also their digitization also took place. And the FASTag, one of the unique product which has enabled the entire country, the toll plaza access made easy, and also the adoption has been completely, mostly 100% has been converted into the digitally enabled toll plazas. In this case, if we see the volumes and the values and the monthly averages and all, it took place somewhere else in starting from the year-on-year growth. It gone from the say 6.72 billion in December 19, and it went to 138 million in the December 20, and it is around the 115 percentage. It growth is around 115%. Similarly, the values also it gone, but in the FASTag systems, it is just not only the what is the direct impact on values, volumes. You must see the thing how this ecosystem has transformed. So the statistics shows that around 80% of the toll plazas are made a zero wait time for the vehicles. So that means earlier it used to happen somewhere else 10 to 15 minutes to wait time for each toll plazas for the vehicles. Now it is zero, means you see the indirect benefits like the time of the every commuter, how much time saved, and it could be utilized for some other productivities. And the fuel, while you are waiting on the toll plazas, most of the time the engines are on and fuel got wasted. Even if you see recently our transport minister has spoken, and it appears to be that, and it is going to save around 2,000 crore per annum only in the fuel account. So that means the transformations and the enablement of the vehicles and to make an automations in the toll plazas, the entire the works, it is again a big transformation by the ecosystems, and the customer has adopted the things. And we let into what are the large value transactions, how the business, because when you talk about the UPI or IMPS or the RuPay card systems or any other card systems, and that mostly taken care of the individual customers. But how the big business entities, B2B and high value transaction, how it is happen? It happened through the NEFT and RTGS systems. And when it's a large value transaction, when you're taking through the system, initially it was on the business day concept, morning to evening, Saturday, Sundays was closed. But in 2019 November, the NEFT made the 24/7. Then that given or enabled the many business entities to use the transaction in all the days and 24/7 basis. And during the pandemic period, all these 280 or 300 banks was providing the real-time gross settlements services to their customers and their business entities. And these people have worked together with the RBI, IPTAS, and created the 24/7 RTGS, and this gone live in December 2020. And this works, what it means that making the high value payment systems and 24/7, and the efforts of those are approximately the 300 banks, and plus their the technical solution provider and whether CBS or middleware, and the other SFMS is the front-end system for each, the NEFT and RTGS, and these systems getting interfaced with the RTGS systems, and they put a lot of effort and made it successful even in the pandemic time. And it is 24/7. It is now, if you see the thing, lot of business opportunities to save lot of money and utilize the money and optimize the money and enable their business to open in the 24/7 all the days. one of the example which I heard from the market that, you know, some of the states have the huge the income or the spendings on the jewelries. The jewelries normally it will be in high value transactions. So earlier people used to carry the cash and to getting the discount or getting the attractions from the jewelry shop owners, and now this completely transferred to the digital because of there is an incentive for making through an online, and the 24/7 it created opportunities. Most of the shopping will happen in the evenings or the Saturdays, Sundays or holidays. The 24/7 RTGS available, it made easy to this jewelry people to accept the RTGS transaction, and customer also able to the transaction. And it was told to me that, and the gold business people have started adopting the RTGS, are accepting the RTGS transaction, so that even they get an incentive, because there is an incentive for when anything comes through the accounted channels. And if the cash channels are discouraged by the jewelry people, they just putting as some additional charges for a cash transaction. So that discourages the cash transaction, and digital adoption has been gone up. So this way, the lot of the efforts has been done during the pandemic. And if you get into the other areas where the huge transformations and the people has been contributed to the systems, or the business to business, and the ecosystems where the business could not able to access the cash or the money. So that is where they have suffered, not able to enable their businesses. But once the digital platforms or trading platforms, even if you see now the loan disbursement and lot of things, now people have worked during this pandemic and demonstrated in a way so that even this pandemic also will not have any constraints to deliver the business or do the business or service their customer irrespective of the segment. I think with this, I would like to conclude the speech. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so very much. We are now about to begin with our panel discussion on innovating with IoT, unlocking the true digital business potential. More on the other side of this break. Till then, please visit our partner booths. Thank you.